What do you think of America's morals and values, and do you think they've changed since you guys were born?
Absolutely. I think they have. I think that the younger generation doesn't have morals. Their upbringing is totally different from mine.
It seems evident that God is less acceptable. So yeah, I would say that that's definitely the biggest change that I've noticed is it seems like now America is trying to eliminate God versus originally when the country was founded, it was on God and biblical principles.
I don't find American values are, changing drastically.
Since I've been born, I don't know how they were when I was born, but I think we pretty good, you know what I'm saying? I think that we could do better, always could do better, you know what I'm saying? It's always room for improvement.
Nowadays, people don't value life. They don't value anything. They don't value work. I don't think they value too much of anything right now.
So where do you think morality comes from, or where does it come from for you?
I think you're born with morals.
The Bible.
Okay. Where do you think it comes from for those that aren't religious?
I think that they are their own gods and that they rely on whatever they want to do.
Well, I think it's coming from my upbringings, coming from a Muslim family in Turkey, and we were raised very strict.
Oh, from my gut, you know what I mean? If automatically, if myself is telling myself this is wrong, you know what I'm saying, that's enough, you know what I'm saying? Always believe in yourself, give yourself more credit.
I would say it comes from your foundation. So my parents, we grew up in the church, and it's all about your foundation, how your parents groom you to be.
With the shift in our morals and values, how do you think that's affected how we raise our children?
I don't think that they're raising children. I think they're having children, and they're making them their friends. There's not any values being taught, it appears.
I think it all comes back to what you choose to model for your children.
I think it's a little different for everybody. We all have different experiences growing up, so we are raising our kids how we were raised, which might not be the right way. And so it goes back to that standard of just because I lived it doesn't mean it's right.
At one time, abortion and same-sex marriage, they were illegal. Now they are legal. Do you think that those two situations are moral issues? And if they are to you, do you think they're morally right or morally wrong?
Same-sex marriage I feel is right, but I don't think abortion is right. I think there's other ways.
People should have the choice to live the way they want to live. It's not my job to judge them. I'm out for it. Whatever makes you happy, as long as you're not hurting anybody. So I say go be great and do whatever makes you happy.
Yeah, I think they're definitely moral issues, and it's almost more of a church problem than a political problem, honestly. Because first, before I'm a citizen of heaven, of America, I'm a citizen of heaven, and in the Bible, and Jesus commands us to stand up for the innocent and the unborn children, and also to stand up for what He created in marriage between a man and woman since the beginning. So I definitely do think it's not just a political issue; it is definitely a religious issue.
That should be up to the person, individual, because it's just a case-by-case basis. It depends on what you're facing. People should be free to make that decision.
Last question. Where do you think that America's morals and values will go in the future? Do you think they'll get better? Do you think they'll get worse? What's your opinion on that?
Until there's a leader that has something that people want to follow, I think we're all just going to be wandering around.
I'm positive. I think that they're going to get better. I really do. I think that the more we model good morality and teach our kids, then the kids will know that growing up from the beginning.
Like right now it's kind of rocky, but in the future I think it's going to get way better with different generations that are coming in.
Well, I think that they will continue to decline as long as this country keeps seemingly putting its faith and its moral compass in the things of man instead of the things of God. Then one can only see them deteriorating.
Everything always gets better with time, so definitely improve, hopefully.
I think we have hope in Jesus, and I think that those of us who believe in Him and pray that this land will turn back to Him, or He'll come and get us. So I'm praying that He's coming for us. But unless this land turns around, I don't think it will.
Lately, Triangle Bob has been obsessed with working out. He started asking questions like, does young blood actually make you stronger? And I was like, Triangle Bob, why are you asking that? But, I mean, I guess I'll make an episode on it. You see, Triangle Bob isn't the only gym junkie who's had this disturbing thought. One story even claims the first transfusion occurred way back in 1492, when a dying pope accidentally killed 3 young, taking their blood. Yet long before that, ancient Egyptians were relaxing in rejuvenating baths of this vital fluid, while some Romans were drinking it from fallen gladiators in an attempt to grow stronger. It sounds preposterous, and the wild thing is, it's still happening to this day, though in a far less, barbaric way. Under the guise of a scientific study, one company has been offering those over 35 the chance to fill their veins with the blood of younger donors, all for the small fee of $8,000. With no control group or placebo, these scientific studies are more like scams, and in 2019, the FDA issued a sharp rebuke that forced some of these unscrupulous companies to shut down. Still, there's some logic to the practice. As it turns out, blood does change the way we age, and the younger it is, the more healing. By joining the circulatory system of an old mouse to a young one, recent studies have shown some remarkable results, bringing new life to aging organs, making older mice stronger, smarter, and healthier, not to mention their shiny fur. One cross-animal study even found that blood from the human umbilical cord improved memory and learning in older mice. Naturally, the research has inspired human trials in China, Korea, and America, most of which rely on young plasma transfusions. This is blood without the blood cells, and it alone contains over 1,000 proteins, many of which we know little about. The race is on to find the elixir of life hiding within, but before Triangle Bob gets too excited by an even bigger frame, there's some bad news. The results we have so far are pretty mixed and quite small. After 1 month, a double-blind, placebo-controlled study on 14 Parkinson's patients found that 2 doses of young plasma over 3 days dramatically improved pain, speech, handwriting, tremors, and falling. The same dose in 13 multiple sclerosis patients improved fatigue, mobility, concentration, and urinary control. Still, these clinical trials remain in their infancy, and they're not always so hopeful. As a treatment for Alzheimer's, plasma has shown minimal, if any, cognitive benefits. Without any long-term studies, the risks are unknown. Today, there are concerns that if young plasma jumpstarts the body's stem cells, it could lead to cell proliferation and maybe even cancer. It's a huge risk for what is currently an alternative treatment at best. That's not to say scientists are giving up, but for now, if Triangle Bob really wants to live long and strong, he's better off sticking to the gym. So are there any other bodily oddities that you want us to talk about next? Let me know in the comment section below. Curious to know if you could give blood after you die? Check out this video. The blood inside a dead body stays usable for about 6 to 8 hours after death. The first cadaveric blood transfusion actually happened in Russia back in 1930.
And whatever you think of the 2014 police shooting of Michael Brown, even the Obama Justice Department eventually ruled that the entire hands up, don't shoot scenario, which blanketed the news day in and day out, was probably fabricated, and that the police officer acted in legitimate self-defense. But it wasn't until 2016 that the actual phrase fake news was introduced to the American public on a national scale. Liberals were first to heavily promote use of the phrase, referring to conservative disinformation and right-wing websites, and there's certainly plenty of that. Example, as Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton battled it out, a website called the Conservative Daily Post published a huge amount of pro-Trump, anti-Clinton propaganda under the name and likeness of a former beauty queen named Laura Hunter. But the real Laura Hunter says she didn't write any of those articles. She claims imposters turned her into a spokesman for a radical right-wing website that peddles fake news. She sued them. Meantime, Trump and conservatives counterpunch with their own notion of fake news, meaning biased, sloppy, erroneous reporting, as committed by the mainstream media and the left. Plenty of that, too. Example, on President Trump's first day in office, a Time magazine reporter falsely reported that Trump had removed the bust statue of Martin Luther King from the Oval Office. The White House quickly tweeted out a photo showing the statue was still very much there. The reporter, perhaps blinded by his own bias, hadn't followed the most basic tenets of beginning journalism: check your facts. So if fake news by other names has always been around, why does it suddenly become the stuff of daily headlines during the 2016 campaign? I did a little digging and I traced the effort to a nonprofit called First Draft, which appears to be about the first to use the phrase fake news in its modern context. On September 13th, 2016, First Draft announced a partnership to tackle malicious hoaxes and fake news reports. The goal was supposedly to separate wheat from chaff, to prevent unproven conspiracy talk from figuring prominently in internet searches, to relegate today's version of the alien baby story to a special internet oblivion. Exactly 1 month later, President Obama chimed in. He insisted in a speech that he too thought somebody needed to step in and curate information in this wild, wild west media environment. Nobody in the public had been clamoring for any such thing, yet suddenly, the topic of fake news dominates headlines on a daily basis. It's as if the media had been given its marching orders. Fake news, they insisted, was an imminent threat to American democracy. But as somebody who studied the industry that seeks to manipulate all of us on behalf of paid interests, I know that few themes arise in our environment organically. A noted propagandist told me, "It's like a movie," he said, and it gave me chills at the time. Nearly every scene or image that crosses our path in daily life, he said, was put there for a reason, often by someone who paid a lot of money to place it there. What if the whole anti-fake news campaign was an effort on somebody's part to keep us from seeing or believing certain websites and stories by controversializing them or labeling them as fake news? But who would want to do such a thing? When connecting the dots, I find it often helps to follow the money. I wanted to know who was funding the nonprofit First Draft and its anti-fake news effort. I found the answer. It was Google. Google's parent company Alphabet was run by a man named Eric Schmidt. Eric Schmidt, as it happens, had devoted himself to Hillary Clinton's election campaign, offered himself up as a campaign advisor, and became a top multi-million-dollar donor to it. His company funded First Draft around the start of the election cycle. Not surprisingly, Hillary was soon to jump aboard the anti-fake news train, and her surrogate David Brock of Media Matters privately told donors he was the one who convinced Facebook to join the effort. I'm not the only one who thinks the whole thing smacked of the rollout of a propaganda campaign. Glenn Greenwald of The Intercept wrote, "The most important fact you need to realize is that those who most loudly denounce fake news are typically the ones most aggressively disseminating it." But something happened that nobody expected. The anti-fake news campaign backfired. Each time advocates cried fake news, Donald Trump called them fake news until he'd co-opted the term so completely that even those who were originally promoting it started running from it, including the Washington Post, which in January of 2017 wrote, "It's time to retire the tainted term fake news." In fact, it's now commonly misreported that it was Donald Trump who thought up the phrase. Actually, it was just a hostile takeover. Suffice it to say that each side now defines fake news in terms that call the other guy into question. So, what's the lesson in all of this? I'm not here to litigate who's right, but I can tell you there are two ways to tell that powerful interests might be trying to manipulate your opinion. Number one, when the media seems to be trying to shape or censor facts and opinions rather than report them. Number two, when so many in the media are reporting the same stories, promulgating the same narratives, relying on the same sources, even using the same phrases. I mean, think of it. There are literally thousands of legitimate news stories that could be reported in a given day and an infinite number of ways to report them. When everybody's on the same page, it might be the result of an organized campaign. I'll leave you with a final thought and a warning. It's about a new catchphrase being bandied about, media literacy, as in we'll tell you who to trust and who not to trust. Media literacy advocates are busy trying to get state laws passed to require that their version of media literacy be taught in public schools. They're developing websites as resources for journalists and the public. They're partnering with universities. I think media literacy is a new name promoted by some of the same people who want to tell you what to believe. People with their own agendas using terms designed to fool you into thinking they're neutral authorities. What you need to remember is that when interests are working this hard to shape your opinion, their true goal might just be to add another layer between you